everyone. Thanks so much for joining us for Ask the Expert North Texas. I'm Kristen Diaz.
I'm David Rankin. The extreme heat around here has affected just about everything outside, but what about way deep underground? We always hear about how extreme cold weather can cause water lines to burst. Can the heat do the same thing? Apparently so. The city of Fort Worth is seeing around 3 breaks a day, and it could get worse. On today's Ask the Expert, we're joined by Mary Gugliuzza from the Fort Worth Water Department. She is in the KRLD Zoom room. Mary, thank you so much for the time.
Thank you. Glad to be here today.
How dangerous is it right now for the hot weather for water lines?
Well, we do see more breaks, and there's a combination of factors. People are using more water. So we're having to pump at more pressure, which can put stress on especially some older lines. Secondly, we don't get a lot of rainfall, the ground dries out, and then it can shift, and that can also cause some breaks in lines. So it's a combination of things. Heat and extreme cold, as you mentioned, both have impacts, but they're different. The heat with the main breaks, we tend to see it fewer per day over a longer period of time. When it's the cold, the factor for us is water temperature. And the closer it gets into the low 40s and below that is when we really start seeing breaks happen because of temperature differences. And so they happen quicker and over a shorter period of time. So if you look at the history of where we've had the most breaks, it's the winter that causes us the most challenges. Summer, the heat, I mean, they both have their effects on employees differently.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, because you got your employees out there in this scorching heat working on these pipes. I mean, I can imagine being wet and cold is not a great factor either during the winter, but in the summertime, I mean, it can be just as bad, just as much of a nuisance, right?
Absolutely. You know, you've got heat exhaustion and heat stroke that can impact employees. So it's very important that they take breaks, they stay hydrated. You know, obviously, we have water on all the trucks, but we also have the powdered Gatorade they can mix in and get some electrolytes. We provide cooling towels for the employees. So we do what we can to keep them safe because that's very important. That is a priority as employee safety.
You talked about how the ground can get dry. Are there different areas that will be more susceptible to breaks because the dirt's different?
Yeah, the dirt is different. So I've not analyzed it by parts of town to be able to tell you. But I think areas where you have more soil than rock, you're more likely to see shifting, right? Because rock doesn't really dry out like soils do. Mm-hmm. So it's just going to depend. We tend to see it widespread. Most of our breaks historically are in the older parts of town because that's the older pipe.
Yeah, I was curious about, like, is cast iron still a big issue for us here in parts of the Metroplex and getting that swapped out?
It is, but you got to understand that's not a short-term process. That's a very long-term process because we're talking over 800 miles of cast iron pipe. It was the pipe of choice for decades. And you know, we have tried to accelerate our replacement program. Our director has a goal of 20 miles a year. That's not always able to be met, but that's the goal we try to get to. And even at that, when you have 800 miles, 20 miles a year, it's going to take a long time to get there.
Yeah, do the math. It's about 40 years. Let's talk about water conservation, because this is also the time of year, as you said, we start seeing less and less rainy days. At what point are we going to see areas around Fort Worth and other parts of North Texas start to put in their conservation measures?
So I think Fort Worth is a little different than some other parts of the Metroplex in that we have conservation measures in place by ordinance that have been here for over a decade now, such as no watering between 10 a.m. and 6 a.m., and no watering or assigned days of the week, twice a week watering for everyone, with nobody supposed to be irrigating on Mondays. You can water with a handheld hose or drip irrigation at any time, but those are the exceptions. So a lot of other parts of the Metroplex may not trigger that till they reach that stage 1 level. And I think it's important to note that different parts of the Metroplex have different water supplies. And so we won't necessarily all reach the same stages for our drought plans, because those plans are customized for each of our situations at the same point in time. So it's important to know who your water provider is and the messages that they're sending out to you. We in Fort Worth purchased our raw water from Tarrant Regional Water District, and TRWD is the one who we and their other major customers have actually coordinated on our plans. And we actually have coordinated to some extent across the Metroplex as to what is in each stage, because we're all in the same media market. It makes it easier on you to get out a message of what stage 1 means. We might not all be in stage 1 at the same time, but at least there's consistency across that. Tarrant Regional, from what we have heard from their projections so far, is that they're not projecting we're actually going to reach stage 1 this summer.
Oh, wow.
Now, things can drastically change that, but that's what the projections are currently showing. And they look at historical as well as what we're actually seeing in water use trends. So, and they update those projections every month and provide them to their wholesale water customers. So that's good news. Having said that,
Now here's the but.
we really do want people to be efficient all the time with their water use, because the one thing about drought is you don't know when it's coming, and when you really don't know you're there till you're in it. And the other side of that is you have no idea how long it's going to last. Is it going to be weeks, months, or years? And that's just the weather uncertainty. No one's been able to predict that. So you just need customers to be efficient. And so the other thing is that can help if we're not, putting so much stress on our infrastructure as well.
Mary Gugliuzza from the Fort Worth Water Department on today's Ask the Expert. Mary, thank you so much for the time.
Thank you.